Hi everyone, welcome to your Thursday English lesson. Now we are going to be continuing with our story about Pompeii. Now yesterday we met Liv and we saw the street that she lives in, and we talked about her father's bakery, and then the pot dropped on the street. Now we're going to do another 3 learning chunks today, and 3 learning chunks but only 5 initiates, and we're going to meet one of Liv's friends. So this is the picture that we are going to be focusing on today. Now Liv is our character here, and then we have got her friend. Now his name is Trinio. It's a bit difficult to pronounce. I'm never quite sure if I get it right after doing it for all these years. But he is one of the actors that we have here at the Amphitheatre. So we're going to be writing about that today. Now, our 2 initiates, we're going to focus on our fronted adverbial. So our fronted adverbial is when we add extra information into a sentence to make it a bit more exciting, but we put this at the front of a sentence. So we need to describe when did Liv go to the theatre. So it's not just a single word, but we're talking about an entire phrase to describe when Liv went to the theatre. So can you jot those ideas down in your first box, please? Okay, so you could have had things like after breakfast, later that day, or during the, that's meant to say heat, so during the heat of the day. So all of those describe when something happened. Now our second initiate that we're going to focus on is looking at expanded noun phrases just like we did yesterday. But I'd like us to describe the theatre. So this is the amphitheatre here. Could you describe it in some way? Think about the things that are inside it, or just general description, please, in your second box. Okay, so you may have had things like famous theatre, popular theatre, terrific theatre. So I went for like general descriptions around the theatre, but you may have done something slightly different. So our first learning chunk today, it's relatively short, we're only looking at a sentence, just to describe when Liv went, and then describing the theatre. So later in the day, Liv went to join her best friend Tranio on the steps of Pompeii's famous theatre. So I've started with my fronted adverbial, and then I've explained that she went to go and join her best friend, and then I've described the theatre, and I've put Pompeii's famous theatre. The theatre belongs to Pompeii, which is why it has the apostrophe for possession, but you might describe it in a slightly different way. So could you now spend, I'm only going to give you a few minutes for this because you're writing one sentence. Start with your fronted adverbial, tell us who Liv went to go and meet, and then describe the theatre, please. Okay, so let's have a look at our second learning chunk. So we are going to do a little bit of speech here. Now, but first of all, what I'd like us to do is to just focus on the rules of speech. Now, there are 6 speech rules that we kind of break it up into. And can you pause the video and in your third box, jot down all of the rules that you will need for speech, please? Okay, so when you have speech, you always start a new line when there is somebody new who is speaking. You have to open your inverted commas or your speech marks, and you start with a capital letter. Now, regardless if you're in the middle of a sentence, if you've done the said bit first, you always start with a capital letter. To finish, you either use a comma, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. You then close your speech marks, and then you put in your said word. Now that said can either go at the end of the sentence, or you can actually put it at the beginning of the sentence as well. But that's kind of the basic order that we follow. So what I'd now like you to do is try and think about what Liv might have said to Tranio. Now I've said he before, I think. They are both girls, they're both she's. So Tranio is in a performance. They are going to perform at the theatre, but they get a little bit nervous. So Liv suggests something to try and calm them down. So have a think about what might be said between the two of them. Now you can jot this down using the speech marks in your box if you would like to, or you can just jot down some basic ideas. I'm not fussed either way, but come back to me after you've done that, please. Okay, so it might be that Olivia is saying that she'll practice lines with you, or I'll watch you perform, things like that to try and calm Tranio down. So that's what we're going to write about now. We're going to talk about the fact that they were watching a performance, Tranio is a little bit nervous, and what they say to each other. I'm very nervous about the play this afternoon, Tranio confessed. I've never performed in front of strangers before. You're an amazing actor, Tranio, Liv comforted. Would you like to watch you rehearse first? She asked. So I have actually made a mistake here. Now, although I've followed the rules of putting a comma, question mark, or an exclamation mark at the end, there is nothing after this. I have already told you who has said it. So this is one of those rare occasions where I can actually put a full stop at the end, and that is because nothing is being said afterwards. So I've opened up my speech mark, started with a capital letter, used my punctuation at the end, and then closed my speech marks, and then told me who has said it as well. Tranio is a name, so they need a capital letter too. And I've done the same here. Open my speech marks, use a capital letter, piece of punctuation, close speech mark, and then told me who has said it. And this is where I have done my what would you like me to do kind of thing to help you. So using speech, can you please explain how Tranio feels and what Liv does to calm them down? Probably 5 or 10 minutes for this one, and then come back to me once you've finished, please. Okay, so our last learning chunk for today's lesson. We are going to use a rhetorical question. Now, a rhetorical question is when we ask a question that we can't expect to be answered. And this is used to kind of make the reader think. Now, we used one of these in our letter writing when we did the pens, but this is slightly different because we don't know who the intended reader is. So we can use it as a way to kind of show the idea that there may be a hidden meaning under what they are thinking. So similar to what could go wrong? Well, we know what probably is going to go wrong in a little bit, but we want to try and use the idea that the main character Liv is thinking, what could go wrong? Nothing's going to go wrong today. It's such a beautiful day. So in your last box, could you come up with similar rhetorical questions to what could go wrong, please? Okay, so I've got some more examples here. You know, what's the worst that could happen? What could fail? Why would you be nervous when the day was so bright? What could go wrong? Why would anything happen on such a lovely day? All of those things are questioning. If we didn't put those in, people might not think there was anything wrong that was going to happen, but we're kind of foreshadowing that. We're making the audience, the reader, think already, actually, maybe something does go wrong. So this is what we're going to do for our last learning chunk today. We are going to say, although they were still nervous, I've done it from Tranio's point of view. Although she was still nervous, this comforted Tranio. After all, what could go wrong in a rehearsal? So we could, I've started with a sentence opener, and then I've also used my rhetorical question. So that's what I'd like you to do. Use your frontal adverbial and then use your rhetorical question. How bad could things be? You can do it from Tranio's point of view, or you can do it from Olivia's point of view. It's one sentence, so I think you will only need 5 minutes for this, please. Okay, so those learning chunks were a little bit shorter today. Hopefully that gives you the opportunity to focus on doing 3 things, but still lengthening what we are doing in our story. So we've met Liv, we know where she lives. She lives in that cobbled street in Pompeii and her father is a baker. We've now also met her best friend who is an actress and is performing in a play that Liv is watching them rehearse, or she's running lines with them, or whatever you have decided to do. And maybe something bad might happen soon. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you tomorrow for Friday's lesson.